Yes, I still have the same hoodie. In fact, I haven't changed out of it since. That's the first mistake I made in my 20s, never changing out of the same green hoodie. What's up everyone, it's Alex here at Conscious Personal Growth, where I share strategies for personal transformation and deepening our awareness. And yes, if you couldn't tell, I have in fact worn more hoodies than this since the age of 23, but that was the age when I bought this 10 years ago. And so it reminds me of being in my 20s, a time in my life in which I made many mistakes. And I'm going to tell you about 5 of the biggest ones in just a moment. But this is the thing, were they really mistakes? I mean, there's no point in looking back at the past and wishing we did things differently, because the past is just a bundle of thoughts in our heads, and the only thing that exists is now. And even if we could go back and change things, can we be absolutely sure that we would get things right the second time around? Even with the information that we know now, we're always learning, and perhaps what happened in the past needed to happen for us to learn the lessons we needed to learn. Experiences that if we didn't go through, we wouldn't be as effective at doing the things we're doing now. But with that being said, it's good to reflect sometimes. Not for too long though, but just for long enough to learn the lessons needed and then act in the present moment with an awakened mind. Perhaps you were fortunate or conscious enough to avoid the same mistakes that I made in my 20s, or perhaps what I learned from those mistakes will help you in avoiding some of the same mistakes now. But either way, with that being said, let's get straight to it. Oh, and watch till the end of the video to hear about the biggest mistake I made in my 20s, so you can be sure to avoid it yourself, whatever age you're at now. The first mistake I made in my 20s was worrying too much about what other people think of me. Now, don't get me wrong, I've never exactly been a conformist. I've never been one to toe the social line and do what the majority is doing, but especially with my creativity, to some extent, I always worried about whether it was good enough or whether other people would be impressed by it. And I think this stems back to my childhood. I remember when I was a kid, I would draw these mazes and labyrinths and bring them to my mum, hoping that she would tackle them right away and be really impressed by them. And I always wanted to create things, hoping it would please other people and resonate with them. And I get so worried that perhaps, something I'd done was cheesy, or it looked stupid, or if it would fall on deaf ears. And to a certain extent, I think it's a good thing to have some awareness about what other people do and don't like, so we can tweak our approach and create more value and therefore influence people or make some more money. But there comes a point in which it can become restrictive, a point in which you're not being authentic and you're limiting yourself in an attempt to meet what you think is everyone else's standards. But we have to remember, you can't please everyone, and if you do make mistakes, you can adjust and learn from them. But you can't go around worrying about what other people think of you all the time. And now I'm in my 30s, I'm really learning to lean into being more true to my authentic personality. A few years ago, I would have been scared to talk about the things I do now for fear of judgment, for fear of seeming cheesy or stupid. But I realized what's more important is saying what's in your heart, even if some people think it's cheesy or stupid, because to others, it won't be. To others, it might deeply resonate with them or help inspire them in some way. And I realized how freeing that is, to act without the constant fear of judgment in the back of your mind. The second mistake I made in my 20s was eating so much meat, eggs, and dairy. But I'm so glad now that in my 30s, I'm 100% plant-based. Now, I know how much controversy and drama there is surrounding diet, and I know, now I've said this, I'm going to get people in the comments below telling me all sorts of stuff. People saying that a plant-based diet will eventually kill me or harm me, and I should be eating raw meat or liver or bone broth or whatever else. But this channel isn't about diet. Right now, it's about my personal experience, and let me tell you this. I used to be covered from head to toe in eczema. All the way up to my 30s, there was at least one place on every part of my body where there would be red spots or rashes or dry or flaky skin. It would get so bad and it would crack and bleed so much that I have scarring right here on the brow of my nose and like on my eyelids, and what they call elephant skin in the pits of my elbows and like down my arms. And yes, correlation isn't necessarily causation, but I'll leave you with this. As my animal product consumption went down, especially the cheese and the milk, my eczema went down to the point where it's now 95% cured. And if I live a perfect lifestyle, I can usually get it to disappear completely. And one of the most amazing things is I often have more energy now than I did in my 20s. Sure, there's other things that contribute to day-to-day well-being, but what we put in our mouths is so crucial than our society often considers it to be. And remember, if you invest in your health, you're also investing into your wealth. The third mistake I made in my 20s was not having clear enough boundaries. Now, we need to be careful with this concept. We can get caught in thinking, that's it, I've had enough. Now I've got these clear boundaries and I won't put up with anyone else's shit. And then you go around looking for people and situations that have crossed the line, and you start reacting to little things to bolster your egoic sense of self. But we also need to have awareness of when someone is clearly taking things too far and decide to tell someone to stop or remove ourselves from that situation. And in my 20s, I didn't do this often enough. There were times where people were acting clearly very unreasonable towards me, and I took it and I forgave and I came back for more and more, and I let it happen again and again, and it got even worse. Now, I think it's a good quality to a certain extent. I think it's good that I am so forgiving. It gives me a lot of patience with people. But there comes a time in which you have to draw the line. There comes a time in which you're reinforcing someone else's behavior by signaling to them that even though you're angry and upset, you're probably going to allow them to do it again without any real consequences. We can and we should always forgive, and we can continue caring about other people, but we don't have to continue being in a situation we don't want to be in. We have to value ourselves enough to know we deserve better and know when it's time to walk away. The fourth mistake I made in my 20s was having a fixer mentality to a lot of things. When anyone had a problem, I wanted to fix it. I had this urge to tell them what they could do to fix their issues and feel better again. And again, I think it's good to some extent. It's a good quality. Many of us are empathic and we want to help people, and that's a good thing. But by the end of my 20s, I realized you can't fix everyone, and you shouldn't even try, and it's an emotionally exhausting process to try anyway. It's often not the best strategy to tell someone what you think they should do anyway. Now, see the irony? Because I'm telling you what I think you should do now. Look, don't get me wrong, there's a solid place for advice, and of course, I often make suggestions on this channel because unless I'm on a live stream, I can't ask you questions and listen, right? But I realized that when someone presents you a problem, sometimes all you have to do is listen and ask questions without necessarily offering up something else in return. Sometimes the space which you create for that person to express themselves is often enough for them to feel better and help themselves. And it's through asking powerful questions that raises the most awareness and responsibility in other people. Now, you can go too far down the road the other way with this and walk around with this passive, hands-off approach where there's someone who'd appreciate your input. But in my 20s, I realized you don't always have to fix someone. Sometimes you just have to be there. The fifth mistake I made in my 20s, and this is probably the biggest one, is not putting aside 10% of my earnings and investing it wisely. Now, I have paid into a pension for many years now, but that's nothing compared to getting your money in a wide range of diversified investments like stocks, bonds, funds, cryptocurrency, or property. In all honesty, I had some pretty unhelpful beliefs around money. When I was in my teens, my brother, who's 14 years older than me, was out there starting his own businesses and earning his own money. And I was obsessed with the creative stuff. Of course, I later realized that building a business is creative, but I got myself into this belief that I was the creative one and creative people don't earn any money, or it's at least a lot harder to. And I'm no good with money, and that's my brother's domain. I was quite frankly scared of money. I never wanted to even look at my bank account, and I thought that financial numbers and financial concepts, they just sent my head spinning. But now I'm in my 30s, I realize it's so much more simple than I had thought all along. You see, they didn't teach us a thing about money in school, and I went through most of my 20s living from paycheck to paycheck without putting anything aside for emergencies or to wisely invest. But eventually I realized money and investing isn't such a scary thing. I realized the most important financial decision you'll ever make is to put 10% of your earnings aside every month without fail and research where to put the money and how to get into the various markets. I realized all you have to do is pick up some books and take some courses in money management and investing. And if I had done that in the beginning, in my 20s, I'd probably have a lot more money now. But, it's never too late to learn how to invest. So if this speaks to you and you haven't done so already, please make the decision now to put at least 10% of your earnings aside every month and research how to invest. Even if you feel like you don't get paid enough to do that, you can budget and find a way. Like in my 20s, I could have found a way. But either way, I don't have any regrets. Regrets are pointless. Lessons learned are fruitful. So tell us in the comments below about a mistake you made in your teens or 20s or 30s or whatever age. Tell us in the comments below so we can learn from each other and grow. And with that being said, like this video if you liked it, and of course, don't forget to subscribe for more videos on conscious personal growth.